Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 3834BN. Today's date is February 5th, 2026, and the title of the episode is Schiff Says the Quiet Part Out Loud, Stage is Set, True 2020 Winner Will Be Revealed. Now, the rules of money are being rewritten right in front of our eyes. The institutions that control the financial system aren't waiting, warning, or wishing. They are acting, buying gold and silver at an unprecedented pace. They're preparing for something. The question is, are you? For nearly a decade, Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands of people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver. As the world shifts to hard assets, the window to act is closing. Let Noble Gold show you how simple it is to protect yourself and your family. While everyone else is reacting to the news, Noble Gold clients are positioning. The understanding that when the rules change, you need assets that don't depend on the system. Visit X22Gold.com and download your free wealth protection kit. That is X22Gold.com. The rules are changing. Make sure you are ready. Or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech fake news, the puppet masters, you can see they are now definitely panicking about the midterms. And you can see that they're planning to do something. Actually, Adam Schiff said the quiet part out loud, letting everyone know they have contingency plans. And you could see at this point, we probably know what maybe they are. Again, we could say it's a pandemic, which I don't believe that's the path they're going to go down. I do believe, yes, there's going to be riots. Yes, they're going to try to push us into war or have some type of cyber attack or some type of an event like that to try to delay or stop the elections and even turn it around and try to blame it on Trump. And that's why they're actually planning for the chaos. So Trump invokes the Insurrection Act. And you can see that Trump now is setting the stage for everything that they're trying to do. Actually, during an interview, he let everyone know that he's not going to be sending in the National Guard or anyone into the blue cities. He's going to let them deal with everything until they beg him to come in there. Now, think about what the Insurrection Act is. Think about what needs to happen. He's actually setting the stage, setting the narrative up, because he knows in the end, they're just going to allow these people to basically destroy, pillage, and kill people during this period of time to stop the elections. And the people of those cities, the people of those states, they're going to demand that the president stop this. And that's what the Insurrection Act really is, when the governing body cannot handle what is going on. So Trump is already setting the stage for this. And you can see that the deep state players, they're panicking over everything that he's doing right now. Remember, everything that Trump is doing, he's setting the stage for what? To bring down the entire corrupt system, not just one little corrupt system, the whole entire system that the deep state players have created. And he wants to show the people, look at their system. Look what they did to keep their system operational. They cheated in the 2020 election. They overthrew the duly elected president. They overthrew the United States government, and they went against the American people to keep laundering the money, to keep the illegals in this country, to keep the criminals on the streets, to keep the rapists, the drug traffickers, the terrorists on the streets, to keep their money laundering system operational. They wanted the kickbacks, to keep the wars going across the world, to keep the woke agenda. They did all of this during 2020. To keep it all going. That's why they overthrew the United States government. It wasn't to keep and help the people of this country. It was to keep their system operational. It was to move their agenda forward. And once people see all of this, and once people understand this, it is game over for all of them. And Trump said something else that's very, very interesting. He let everyone know, we're going to finally find out who the true 2020 winner actually is. And we all know it's Trump. I mean, he's not saying it just to say it. We all know that the deep state players, the D's, Other foreign countries, they assisted in overthrowing the United States government. And then they had an insurrection against the sitting president on January 6th. No, it was not against Biden. He was not the sitting president. The sitting president was President Trump. That's why Biden didn't come out and say, go home peacefully and patriotically. The president has to say that. Once the president says that and they don't do it, it's an insurrection. That's what the Insurrection Act says. That's why they removed his tweet at the time. They didn't want people to see this. So what happens when it's revealed that Trump is the true winner of the 2020 election? Now, he's mentioned this many, many times before. He used a scenario: if a burglar steals the diamonds and the burglar is caught, does he get to keep the diamonds or does he have to return them? So if the election was stolen from Trump in 2020, well, what happens? Does he get his other term? He was robbed, wasn't he? What happens during this scenario? Now, there's nothing in the Constitution. It means most likely the Supreme Court's going to have to make a decision on all of this. They're going to have to see how they rigged the election, how they lied to the American people, how the people thought that Biden actually won when they actually rigged the election and they lied to the American people. So the Supreme Court most likely is going to have to say, whoa, this is an interesting case. Yeah, I think he's going to get another term here. Maybe that's why he keeps saying a fourth term. Remember, the first term, people elected him. He used the Electoral College to bypass their cheating system. The second term, he allowed the deep state players to overthrow the United States government, overthrow the duly elected president. They staged an insurrection. The military took control. He was the commander in chief. That was his second term. The people then elected him for the third term. So will he be allowed to have a fourth term? Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see how it all plays out. But the people are going to understand. They're going to realize that, yes, we had a puppet government in this country. And this is why the people experienced what they experienced during this period of time, because they were pushing an agenda against the American people. And this is what the deep state players are so panicked about, because they understand that the midterms are very, very important. Think about how important the midterms are. With the power of the House and the power of the Senate, this is the only power you can actually remove an elected official. Think about that for a second. Having the power of the House and the Senate, you have the power to remove an elected official. And it goes both ways. That's how powerful the House and Senate is. The president cannot do that, but Congress can. This is why they waited. This is why they allowed Trump to win the election. And what I mean by that is they couldn't compete against him. So they couldn't use their cheating system. So they said, you know something, let him have this because we can't cheat. We're going to have to change everything up, and we're going to have to take control of the House and Senate. There's no way we can compete with the people of this country. That's what they did. And that's why they said that's why Obama said we have time, because they shifted strategy. We'll be talking a lot more about this a little bit later. But first, let's talk about Savannah Guthrie, because this is a very sad story where her mother is now missing. Now, was she kidnapped? Something happened? She get lost? But now Trump, he's getting involved. And now he's assisting in trying to find where she is, what happened. Now, most of the time they look at family members first to see if they did something. I think they're looking at the son-in-law right now. But Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following: I spoke with Savannah Guthrie and let her know that I am directing all federal law enforcement to be at the families and local law enforcement complete disposal. Immediately, we are deploying all resources to get her mother home safely. The prayers of our nation are with her and her family. God bless and protect Nancy, President Donald J. Trump. And once again, this is a very odd story. Most likely what people are thinking, it's a family member, maybe the son-in-law or something like that. Or maybe she just got lost and, all of a sudden dementia hit. We don't know. But let's see how this all plays out, and let's see what happens. Now, the other thing that we've come to find out, and Alex Brushewitz put this out, is that, remember Irina? Well, her killer, DeCarlos Brown Jr., was released from prison early because of a former Democrat governor, Roy Cooper. He actually released this individual, and as of right now, you could see that because of this individual decided to stab her multiple times. And it's imperative that Cooper is held accountable in November's election for what has been done here and what this person has caused. Absolutely. And what's very interesting is that the propaganda right now is fierce against Trump, where he's deporting a lot of the illegals. And what's very interesting is everyone continually compares Trump to Obama with ICE quality and safety metrics. So you have Trump first year, second term data, 2025, and Obama first 2 years, 2015 to 2016. So if you look at Trump's stats, it says mistaken U.S. citizen detention, 0.0067% error. If you look at Obama, it's 0.0225% error. Well, it's higher with Obama. One mistake per 14,925 arrests. Obama is one mistake per 4,444 arrests. Deaths in ICE custody. One death in 18,594 detainees. With Obama, it's one death in 14,314. Mistaken deportations, 0. Mistaken deportations, U.S. citizens, 4 for Obama. So basically, Obama has higher stats. So all this outrage and everything that they're doing has nothing to do with any of this. It's basically what they're doing is they're saying we cannot have these illegals deported because otherwise we will not be able to win another election. And this is why it's not grassroots. This is why it's not the people of this country that are protesting. It's Antifa and the people that they brainwashed and the illegals and criminals. That's why you only see a small handful of people. You don't see the whole state of Minnesota. You don't see the entire city of Minneapolis. You don't, when you go to California or if you go to Washington, if you go to Oregon, you don't see the entire state out there. You see a very, very tiny group that goes against ICE. So once again, this tells you everything you need to know. And this has nothing to do with what's really going on. It has to do with, hey, we need these people in this country to cause chaos, and we need these people to cheat in the election. If we don't, and this is the Democrats talking, if we don't have these illegals, we're screwed. That's pretty much what they're saying. And every day that passes, we could see that more and more people are being rounded up for a sex trade. So the authorities in Los Angeles announced on Tuesday the result of a statewide crackdown on human trafficking that resulted in the arrest of more than 600 suspects and the rescue of 170 victims. And this is in sex trade. So the week-long Operation Reclaim and Rebuild campaign was part of a yearly effort by Los Angeles Regional Human Trafficking Task Force and 80 local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. And they were able to stop this, arrest these people, and save those victims. And there were 156 adults that were rescued, 14 children that were rescued. So think about this. Think about what is being done right now in this country where they're trying to save these people from sex trafficking. Because you have to remember, we've already had a dump of the Epstein information. People are learning that the D's are responsible for all of this. And it's not just in this country. It's people that are in the UK. There's royalty in the UK. There are politicians. There are CEOs. Yes, there's a lot of people that are involved in all of this. And this is their entire pedo network. This is just the beginning stages of it all. I do believe as time goes on, we're going to learn a lot more about this. And like I said before, all of this is going to come full circle because you have to remember all these people that have been trying to stop Trump, these people that have been treasonous to this country, they're also involved in the same pedo networks. They're all the same exact people. And now we could see why they want to keep the illegals in this country, why they've been trying to stop Trump. And you have to remember, this is not just the agenda in this country, it's the agenda around the world. I mean, look at all the countries like UK, when you look at Germany, when you look at France, when you look at Spain, They're all following the same agenda. This is the agenda of the World Economic Forum, Soros, and the rest. And when you look at Spain, you can see that Spain, they're giving amnesty to 500,000 illegals. And you know what they're not doing? They're not really checking their backgrounds. They're just taking the words of the illegals. Hey, have you committed a crime? No? All right, come on to this country. I mean, they're relying on the illegals to tell them the truth, which is absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense. And you can see Europe, it's going on full lockdown and censorship right now. And you can see it's with the EU, it's with the UK, it's with Spain, it's with Portugal. Basically, they want to control social media completely. And if they can't do that, eventually what they'll have is a communication blackout. Mario ZNA put this out and said, after France and Spain, Portugal now wants to introduce a digital pass under the EU digital identity system just to be allowed to connect online. They say it's for the safety of our children, but the reality is this is just another step toward killing our freedoms. The EU is an open-air prison, and Ursula von der Leyen is the warden. And yes, this is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to shut people up because, once again, to stay in power, they have to do this. Which means if they can't gain control of social media the way they want, they will have to shut down communications. They will have to shut down the ability to access all this information. The same goes here in the United States. Because again, you could see this is all connected. Now, I don't believe they'll have the ability to do this. We might see it spotty from time to time, but I don't believe they have the ability to shut down all social media platforms. They might be able to do it out in Europe, but here in America, I don't think they're going to have the ability to do this. I think safeguards have been put into place. And we know that Musk has his satellites up in space. The Space Force has their satellites in space. And now Trump is in office. And if he has to communicate, we know he could do this over the phones. So once again, whatever they try to do, I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they are ready for this. And I don't think if something does go down, I don't think it's going to go down for that long. And you know what's very interesting? Yesterday we talked about how the House GOP basically exposed how the EU was involved in interfering with many or 8 different countries and their elections. And now it seems that those countries, they're getting pretty darn pissed off and angry, and they want early elections because of all of this. Mara Nafal put this out and said, George Simeon, Romanian opposition leader, is demanding early elections in Romania following a U.S. document that points to EU interference in the 2024 presidential vote, later annulled despite Georgescu's win. So this is very, very interesting. Let's see how this all plays out. That's going to be very, very interesting. Actually, every single country should be looking at their elections, just like we're looking at our elections here in the United States, because the deep state players do what? They don't allow for free, open elections. They have rigged elections. They try to rig every single election because it's the only way they can win. They're not for democracy. They're for dictatorship. And I think that's becoming clearer and clearer every single day. Now, the other thing that we could see is that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, and this coming from Visegrad 24, is complaining that Russian companies are being forced to leave Venezuela due to a U.S. operation in the country. And you have to remember, Russia began major investment in Venezuela back in the 2000s under Hugo Chavez, who received $2.2 billion from the Kremlin to purchase Russian weapons. In the 2010s, Russia's largest oil company, Rosneft, became a key lender to Venezuela in exchange for receiving stakes in the country's oil projects. So now they're very upset that Trump now has taken over. Now, I do believe what Trump has told Russia right now, and I do believe this is why Russia was moving into the Western Hemisphere, is because NATO was moving closer and closer to Russia. So what do you think Russia was going to do? They were going to move closer and closer to the U.S. and to Europe and to other countries. And I do believe Trump said, listen, yes, I know you moved into these countries, but you know what's going to happen? This is something that you wanted for a very long time. Once we have peace around the world, we're going to make economic deals with you and we're going to have trade with you. So you won't have to do anything. You're going to have so much business from the U.S. and the U.S. is going to have so much business from you that you won't have to worry about it. And you won't have to worry about being the boogeyman anymore. So I do believe Russia is already understanding this. They understand what is happening right now. And I do believe they're completely on board. And this is why Trump continually speaks to Putin, because I think their major goal is not to have World War III. Their major goal is to have commerce. and to work with the United States. And Trump, I do believe he's playing on this. Now, out in Venezuela, we can see that Maduro's key ally, Alex Saab, he's been arrested in Venezuela as part of a joint operation between U.S. and Venezuela authorities. So basically, as of right now, you could see they're removing the deep state government in Venezuela. And very soon, what they're going to do, they're going to actually give the power back to the people of that country. And the people are going to run that country. And you're going to see that Venezuela is going to be turning right from left. And you can see South America, every single country is moving in the opposite direction that the deep state actually wants them to move. Soon you're going to see Brazil remove Lula, because you have to remember that individual was in prison. Biden released him. Then he ran for election. They cheated in the election and basically won against Bolsonaro when Bolsonaro had the people behind him. It didn't make any sense. He was like the Brazilian Trump in Brazil. So the whole thing didn't make sense from the very, very beginning. And just like we had parades here in the United States and Biden won, did that make any sense? No, they cheated in the election. And you can see, as of right now, the European Union, they're starting to break apart and they're starting to go up against Ursula von der Leyen. And you can see this is the Czech Republic, it's Hungary and Slovakia. They're now blocking the 90 billion EU loan for Ukraine. Global Dissent put this out and said, 3 nations now stand against Brussels. If Orban wins again, the EU faces a long-term crisis. They refuse to bow to insane EU politics, a turning point for Europe. That's absolutely true. And Viktor Orban, he put this out and said, today in the EU, only one side of the Ukraine war is allowed to be shown. A Brusselian regulation explicitly bans alternative viewpoints. Who are they to dictate what citizens must believe? Europeans have the right to hear all arguments and draw their own conclusions. This is Brusselian censorship, Orwellian in nature. And he's absolutely right. And you could see that every step of the way, what is the EU doing? They're censoring everyone while telling everyone they support free speech. They are liars, and they continue to lie. And it looks like Trump won when he was actually going up against Starmer in the UK. Remember, the UK was going to give away Diego Garcia, and it looks like at this point in time, they're not going to do this. And this is what he put out on Truth. He said the following: I have had very productive discussions with Prime Minister Keir Starmer about the island of Diego Garcia. It is the site of major U.S. military base strategically situated in the Middle East, middle of the Indian Ocean, and therefore of great importance to the national security of the United States. We have the most powerful military in the world. Our military operations over the course of the last year were successful because of the strength of our warfighters, modern capability of our equipment, and, very importantly, the strategic location of our military bases for staging and other reasons. I understand that the deal Prime Minister Starmer has made, according to many, the best he could make. However, if the lease deal sometime in the future ever falls apart or anyone threatens or endangers U.S. operations and forces at our base, I retain the right to militarily secure and reinforce the American presence in Diego Garcia. Let it be known that I will never allow our presence on a base as important as this to ever be undermined or threatened by fake claims or environmental nonsense. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJT. So once again, he's letting everyone know exactly what will happen. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that 3 U.S. warships they've dispatched to Haiti as part of a campaign against drug traffickers. And what's very interesting about this, at the direction of Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, the ships USS Stockdale, USCGC Stone, and USCGC Diligence, they have arrived in the Bay of Port-au-Prince as part of the Operation Southern Spear. And this is very, very interesting because we also know there are other things that happen in Haiti where they were trafficking children. Yes, there's drug trafficking, and yes, there is trafficking of women and trafficking of children. But the Schiff put this out, and it says the following: the Clintons had full control over the contracts for anyone getting involved in the Haitian recovery efforts. These efforts also included Haitian elections. The Clintons implemented Smartmatic into Haitian politics after the 2010 earthquake. This is the beginning of the global operation to install these manipulative, backdoor implemented electronic voting machines worldwide to steal elections and install the candidate of their choice. This is the election fraud cartel and its inception. So yes, they were able to steal the elections there. They also controlled what was going on in Haiti. They also controlled the funds that were going into Haiti, and they were also involved in trafficking of children in Haiti. And that reminds me of two posts, 866, March 6, 2018. It says, so much is open source, so much left to be connected. Why are the children in Haiti in high demand? How are they smuggled out? Adoption process? Local staging, ports friendly to Clinton Foundation? Track donations, cross against location relative to Haiti. Think logically. The choice to know will be yours. And then we have post 1233, April 21st, 2018. They will lose black vote once Haiti is revealed. Lost now, awakening. And yes, that is true. They have lost the black vote because of the Great Awakening. They keep them enslaved. What did Hussein do for the black community? Verse POTUS. He has done nothing for the black community compared to President Trump. So I do believe we're going to see a lot happen in Haiti, which is going to point to the Clintons once again. And as we know, the Clintons, they're set up and ready to testify in front of Congress. And now Clinton, she is now making demands that their testimony should be completely transparent and not behind closed doors. Now, the world is getting more unstable and chaotic every day. It seems like everywhere you look, there's another crisis, controversy, conflict, or a catastrophe. You can't control what happens out there, but you can control how you prepare for it. You can make sure that no matter what happens, you have the basics covered in case one of these disasters reaches your doorstep. You know, things like having enough food to eat when the shelves are empty. And when it comes to my family food security, I trust my Patriot Supply. They've helped millions of Americans get prepared, and they have over 90,000 five-star reviews. Right now, you can get their best selling 3-month emergency supply for $100 off. My Patriot Supply almost never offers a deal like this, so take advantage. Go to preparewithx22.com. This food kit gives you 2,000 calories a day, lasts up to 25 years, and best of all, it's $100 off for a limited time. Go to preparewithx22.com and get yours right now. That's preparewithx22.com, or just click the link in the description. Sounds good, doesn't it? Well, we'll be talking about that in just a sec. Now, the other thing that we could see is that during the reign of Biden and Obama, they pushed wokeism across the country. And they used DEI to push the white people out of business, to make sure white people didn't get into college, keep white people from getting promotions. And this was all done through DEI. Basically, it's a reverse form of racism. Now they're racist against white people. And nobody should be looking at the color of anyone's skin to determine if they should have a job or they should get into school or anything like that. It should be on merit, period, the end. And the way it should be done is, if you ever watch the show The Voice, their chairs are turned around. They don't see the singer. They have no idea if it's a white, black, woman, man. They have no idea who it is. And that person is singing. And they make their decision without seeing the person. The same thing should go with anyone getting into college, anyone getting a job. It should be done by merit. How good is this person? Do they deserve to be here? And when you look at Nike, they are now under a federal probe over its anti-white hiring practices. And when you see Nike, you can see the U.S. workforce underwent dramatic shifts at entry level. And you could see for executives, it dropped dramatically compared to Hispanic, to Asian. When you look at managers, white people, it dropped dramatically compared to Hispanic, Black, Asian, and other races. When you look at less senior roles, professionals, the same exact thing. They decided not to look at the white people. They decided to look at everyone else. And that, again, is a form of racism. And it's becoming very, very clear to the people of this country. That's what DEI is. Yes, they rebranded it and used fancy words to explain it, but basically it's actually racism. That's really what they're talking about. And if you notice, it all goes back to the deep state players. It all goes back to the D's, because really that's what they're all about. They are the party of racism. They're the party of criminals. They're the party of destroying the American way. They're the party of slaves. They're the party of dictators. They're the party that are not part of this country. They're completely against this country. That's who they really are. And if you look at what they've done to the younger population, they ran experiments on the younger population. They cut off genitals. They removed breasts. They removed skin from the arm. And the American Medical Association and doctors, they went all along with this instead of giving the children help. And now that there's a lawsuit, all of a sudden the American Medical Association is now backing off their support for sex change for kids. Robbie Starbuck put this out and said, now they agree surgical intervention in minors should be generally deferred to adulthood. They previously supported sex change surgeries for minors. Never forget what they did. It's the same thing with COVID. It's the same thing with everything. And look what it took for them to reverse the decision. They aren't involved in true medical care. They're involved in politics, period. And when they see a lawsuit and they see the American people turning, against them, all of a sudden they change things up. Actually, the American Medical Association, all those people should be removed of their responsibility at this point in time. Or maybe the organization should be shut down. Let's see how this all plays out. But the Last Refuge responded to all this and said, history will not look kindly to the events surrounding this in the past decade. And history is not going to look kindly to COVID and everything else the deep state players have done. Yes, I do believe this is going to be a history lesson for the children of this country. I do believe what we're going to see is they're going to learn about what the deep state players have done and how they tried to take over this country. It's going to be absolutely incredible. And I do believe we're going to have to keep teaching our children over and over and over. We should never, ever allow this to happen again. And I do believe we're never going to let it happen again. Well, maybe in a couple 100 years, people will forget. But as of right now, no, we're not going to allow this to happen again. We have to teach our children and our children's children and our children's children's children and so forth and so on and so on. It always should be kept in the history books. Everything should be kept, and the people should know. Now, we could see that Trump, every single day that passes, the people now are seeing the system of fraud. Well, it's the criminal syndicate system. And yes, they have many moving parts to their system. And every day people are starting to realize it's not isolated incidences. Oh, it's not just USAID. Oh, it's not just the 14 computers in the Treasury. It's not just Minnesota. It's actually how their system operates. And I think people now are starting to really understand this. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He's pointing to Wayne Dunlap, and it says California's lost money. $32 billion in COVID relief payment fraud. $24 billion unaccountable homeless relief. $18 billion high-speed rail fraud, zero track laid. $2.5 billion food stamp fraud. $650 million 911 system that never worked. So basically, where did all this money go? I think we all know. We all know that it was basically distributed to certain politicians for kickbacks. It was distributed to Soros and many others to push their agendas. And once again, you can see that it's happening in Minnesota. It's happening in California, in Washington, in Oregon, in New York. So when people say, oh, if we don't pay these taxes, the government the local governments won't be able to operate, that's a gigantic lie. We don't need all these taxes. Actually, we don't even need taxes at all. Trump is building the tariff system. It's a parallel economic system where we take money in externally. They tricked us once again. They lied to us once again. Oh, we need all this money. You know why they kept saying we need all these taxes? Because of all the crime, all the money laundering. We were supporting their system. That's why all of this is happening. If you get rid of their system and you actually balance the budget and you don't have an open-ended credit card, you don't need any of this. And that's what people are going to see. But you can see the deep state players, they're trying to fight back with everything they have. They're telling the Antifa, they're telling their people and other people to rise up and fight against the Trump administration. And every time they do this, they don't realize that everything has changed right now. And now that individual out in Minneapolis who said to rise up against the Trump administration, he has tattoos all over him. He dresses up like a woman and he wants to kill and dox the officers. Well, it looks like Pam Bondi arrested him. And she says, if you come for law enforcement, the Trump administration will come for you. Thank you for our outstanding agents for executing yet another arrest, this time in Antifa domestic terrorists. These are the true domestic terrorists. And I think now people could see it as clear as day. And you could see that Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, they're doing everything they can to try to keep the illegals in this country, which means they're trying to stop DHS. They're trying to stop ICE every step of the way. Nick Sorter put this out and said, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer have just released their core demands for ICE and they're complete non-starters. They want all 20 plus million illegals to have judicial warrants, unmask agents, and force them to dox their names. Nope, we're not doing any of that. And by the way, all these people are going to be deported in this country, no matter how long it takes. If they're criminals, which means they came into this country illegally, which means they are criminals because they broke federal law, they must be deported. If they are truly upstanding citizens, they will go to the port of entry and they'll give it the old college try to get back into this country. And remember, Trump and team, they're letting all these people know that if you self-deport, it will be paid for. And then you can try later. Now, again, do you think the criminals are going to do this? You think the terrorists are going to do this? You think any of these people? No, they're not. And the deep state players, they know this. They know once these people are out, they're not coming back, which means they can't cheat in the election, which means they can't use them for chaos, which means their entire plan goes down the drain. And you could see that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, they're slated to testify in front of Congress on, I think, the 26th and 27th of February. Now, something might happen. They might get sick. They might skip it. We don't know. But you can see Hillary Clinton, she's still trying to manipulate the hearings. And this is what she put out on X. For 6 months, we engaged Republicans on the Oversight Committee in good faith. We told them what we know under oath. They ignored it, all of it. They moved the goalposts and turned accountability into an exercise in distraction. So let's stop the games. If you want this fight, Representative James Comer, let's have it in public. You love to talk about transparency. There's nothing more transparent than a public hearing. Cameras on. We will be there. Now, think about it. Why would she be doing this? Why would she want a public hearing instead of behind closed doors in the very beginning? Well, number one, there are a lot of questions that they're going to ask behind closed doors that maybe have to do with national security that can't be publicized just yet. And there may be very specific questions that they want answered. Now, if you do this in a public setting, guess what? You can't ask those questions. So what is she doing here? She, instead of being defensive, she's trying to play the offense. She wants it transparent. So this way, they won't go down certain paths and ask them certain questions. Plus, she wants sound bites. She wants certain things to get on social media. And you have to remember, in a public setting, there's time limits. Behind closed doors, it's very, very different. And I do believe, yes, there should be a public hearing, but first do it behind closed doors and actually get the meat and potatoes, because there's a lot of things you can ask and they might be a national security issue. But again, it's behind closed doors and they have the authority to hear it. Maybe later on that could be declassified. Do you think that's why she doesn't want to testify behind closed doors? Because once they'd have that information, they could declassify it. And that's why she wants to be in a public setting. Yeah, you'll be in a public setting, but first you got to do what Comer wants first. So this way they can ask the questions. And I think cynical Publius pretty much explains it all and says that Democrat Party, they're very similar to Hamas or any terrorist organization. And this is what he says. Both organizations deliberately create confrontations with government authorities with the express intent of filming those confrontations to share on social media. Such videos are always edited to leave out the part where the Democrats or terrorists initiate that violence. Children are brought to protests as human shields. If a child is harmed, as is her parents are engaged in violence, such child is the focus of social media efforts. Rank and file members, useful idiots, are actively encouraged to illegally engage with armed authorities. These martyrdom operations are to the extent martyrs are created out of useful idiots. That was always the unstated intent, but nobody tells the useful idiot that. Number 5, illegal violent operations are funded by U.S. tax dollars. Money laundered through multiple NGOs and nonprofits. Number 6, laws are irrelevant when they are inconvenient. Laws are ironclad rules when they are convenient. Number 7, opponents are dehumanized such that any atrocity that is inflicted on them is justified. 8, a major goal is to sway public opinion on the international stage and create the story that the aggressors are actually the victims. 9, neither Hamas or any terrorist nor the Democrats can meme effectively. Number 10, the ultimate goal of both Democrats and the terrorists is to create elaborate deception operations as a path to absolute power. Absolutely. Isn't that what we call an insurgency? I do believe so. And what's very interesting is, remember the No Kings protests? Well, Tony Saruga breaks down who actually financed this. Arabella, $79 million. Warren Buffett, $16 million. Ford, $51 million. Rockefeller's $26 million. Soros, $72 million. Tides, $45 million. $294 million. Think about that for a second. Absolutely unbelievable. But Scott Bessent right now, he is now tracking down all the fraud, especially in Minnesota. And then, yes, once that is completed, he will then move on to other states. Redline Report put this out and said, Scott Bessent just announced the Internal Revenue Service is launching massive audits of financial institutions that facilitated the laundering of Minnesota funds. Banks, MSBs, financial middlemen, anyone who helped move dirty money is about to get torched. So right now, we're using the IRS to track down all this money. Follow the money. So yes, you're going to see it go to legislators. You're going to see it go through NGOs. You're going to see it go through the mayor's office, the governor's office. You're going to see all of this. All of these people will be held accountable in the end. And like we said before, the FBI, DHS, DNI, CIA, there are sleepers in all these organizations. And yes, there are leakers still in these organizations. Have we completely and utterly cleaned house as of yet? No, we're pretty good. We're very close, but we haven't done everything completely. And what's very interesting is that Christine Nome, she has identified another leaker, and she has now referred this individual to the DOJ for prosecution. Secretary Christine Nome put this out and said, SP Cohen is down another source. We just got caught another prolific leaker putting out DHS Gov law enforcement at risk as they already face 8,000% increase in death threats against them. A plan to refer this individual to the Justice Department for criminal prosecution. We are agnostic about your standing, tenure, political appointment, or status as a career civil servant. We will track down leakers and prosecute them to the full extent of the law. And once again, there are still individuals out there that will continually leak information. There are sleepers that are probably still there that will try to go against Kristi Noem, go against Kash Patel, go against Bondi. So once again, they're still going through a lot of these people. Have they spent time restructuring these agencies? Because you have to remember, these agencies were developed to do what? Were they there to protect the American people? Were they there to protect and prosecute criminals? No. They were there to protect the criminals. They were there to protect the criminal syndicate. They were there to go against the American people. And as of right now, you can see that we're finding out more of these leakers and they are being prosecuted. This is not Biden's administration. This is not Obama's administration. It's not the Bushes or the Clintons. Everything now is changing. And Trump, he was doing an interview, and they asked him that about mass deportation. And he let everyone know that, yes, he's going to be deporting the illegals, but for those cities, he's not going to bring in people unless they beg for his help. And this is what Trump says. Trump says he's adjusting his mass deportation policy to only go into cities if the mayors or governors ask and say please, adding, I don't want to go and force ourselves into a city, even if their numbers are terrible. Now think about this. He's already setting the stage. He's setting it all up. Because when crime gets out of hand, when Antifa, the illegals, and the criminals are all over the streets, burning, looting, and killing, he's going to wait. Optics are very, very important. And I do believe the people of those states, they're going to demand that something be done. And when they see their mayor, their governor, the police there doing absolutely nothing, they will demand that Trump bring in the forces. And that reminds me of Post 4360, May 30th, 2020. Insurrection Act of 1807. Determination that the various state and local authorities are not up to the task of responding to the growing unrest. Call the ball. And yes, the ball will be called because once again, he's already set everything up. I'm not doing anything. Let the mayors, let the governors, let them handle it, everything. And when you see that they're not, I want you to ask me. And who's going to ask? Well, there's going to be so much pressure on the mayors and governors that the people are going to say enough is enough. I think they're going to bypass all of these people and they're going to go directly to the president and say, we need your help. But let's see how this all plays out. This is going to be very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that we could see is Trump now, he is confirming that Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson should be removed because she has removed any shred of impartiality by applauding anti-ICE speeches at the Grammys. And again, she's the only Supreme Court justice that ever attended a Grammy Awards. She's on the side of the Democrats. She's applauding the anti-ICE speeches. So is he setting everything up to have her removed later on? Let's see. The auto pen, her going to the Grammys. Yeah, I think the case is now being built, and this is going to be a complete and utter disaster for her and the deep state players. Just like it's a complete and utter disaster for the deep state players right now, because the fresh U.S. Census Bureau estimates just dropped, and it's like a political nuke just hit the Dems. Election Wizard put this out and said, blue states are bleeding population, projected to lose 10 electoral college votes after 2030. Red states are exploding, expected to gain 9. Net Republican shift to 8 to 10 EVs in most projections. If trends hold, neither the old blue wall path, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, nor the Sun Belt strategy by themselves gets future Dems to 270. The breakdown. California -4, New York -2, Illinois -1, Minnesota -1, Oregon -1, Rhode Island -1. Red booming, Texas +4, Florida +3 to 4, Idaho +1, Utah +1. Swing states, Arizona +1, Georgia +1, North Carolina +1, Pennsylvania -1, Wisconsin -1. So it looks like everything is changing. Yeah, the deep state players, the D's, they're now panicking like we've never seen before. And look, the people right now, they don't believe that Biden got 81 million votes. Rasmussen Reports asked a simple question, June 2023. Do you agree or disagree with the statement? There is no way Joe Biden got 81 million votes in the 2020 election. Agree? Dems 31%, independents 45%, GOP 72%, all voters 49%. Now think about it. Fast forward to today. Does everyone think that Joe Biden got 81 million votes? These numbers are way, way up. So basically, as of right now, you can see the Dems, they're coming on the side of the Republicans. They're starting to realize that the elections were rigged. And think about it, when the puppet government was put into place, they erected fences because they thought Trump was going to come in there. They thought there was going to be a coup because they're like, holy crap, we pulled it off. We're able to cheat in the election. We overthrew the United States government. You think Trump's going to use the military to come in and get us? They were so afraid. But look what a puppet government does to this country. Stephen Miller put this out and said, the first bill Biden sent to Congress was a bill to make illegal aliens into voting citizens. He terminated every Trump deportation policy, ordered ICE to halt removals, and command CBP to start mass releasing illegal aliens into America. Biden organized and ordered the invasion. Absolutely, because they can't win otherwise. Look what they had to do to win the election in 2020. They had to cheat. They had to use mail-ins. They had to release a virus. and they had to use everything at their disposal to win. Unbelievable. And you could see at this point, Trump is letting everyone know the country is one gigantic criminal syndicate. Trump says there are some areas in our country that are extremely corrupt. They have very corrupt elections. Take a look at Detroit. Take a look at Philadelphia. Take a look at Atlanta. If states can't do it honestly and it can't be done properly and timely, then something else has to happen. And once again, if they can't do it, then what's the other thing? Now, a lot of people say, oh, nationalize. No, that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is we need the SAVE Act. We need to go back to voter ID. We need to go back to one-day voting. We need to go back to paper ballots. That's the answer. It's very, very simple. And you could see the deep state players, they are now panicking over the midterms. And Adam Schiff, he just said the quiet part out loud regarding the midterm elections. Patriots Are Control put this out. And this is what Schiff says. We're going to have to do what we did basically in the run-up to the 2020 election. What happened during the run-up? Let's see. They released a virus and they had riots. So we know they're going to do a riot. Are they going to release another virus, or is it going to be another event like a cyber attack? So he talks about having contingencies in place to prevent Republicans from stealing the elections. Translation, they need to figure out other ways to cheat now that their primary cheating techniques have been blocked. And Democrats are now threatening a government shutdown in order to prevent ICE from being at polling places. Could it be any more obvious what's going on here? They need illegals to vote or they're screwed. These people are in full-blown panic over the Trump administration securing our elections. So basically, they don't want ICE at the voting booths because this way they could scare the people away from voting, and the illegals don't have to worry about voting in the election. They won't be taken away by ICE. But what happens when the SAVE Act is passed, which I do believe this is the direction that we're heading in? This is going to be a major, major problem for them. Forget about ICE. They're going to have other things to worry about because, once again, they won't have the IDs. They won't be able to vote. And basically, they will be checked out and they'll be afraid to go in these areas. So it's not going to work out the way they think it's going to work out. And every step of the way, what is Tulsi Gabbard doing? What is the FBI doing? They're investigating the election fraud. And what's very interesting is that Tulsi Gabbard led an investigation into Puerto Rico's voting machines last May. And this is what she found out. Kaneko the Great put this out and said, citing similar voting infrastructure across the United States, her office said the Office of the Director of National Intelligence identified extremely concerning cybersecurity and operational deployment practices that pose a significant risk to U.S. elections. ODNI said some vulnerabilities in Puerto Rico's voting machines stem from the use of insecure cellular technology along with software flaws that could allow hackers deep access into critical election systems. Given ODNI's broad statutory authority to coordinate, integrate, and analyze intelligence related to election security and our known work on understanding vulnerabilities to foreign and other malign interferences, ODNI conducted an examination of electronic voting systems used in Puerto Rico's elections. In April 2025, Tulsi Gabbard told a cabinet meeting that her office had obtained evidence showing U.S. electronic voting systems have long been vulnerable to hacking. We have evidence of how these electronic voting systems have been vulnerable to hackers and vulnerable to exploitation and manipulate the results of the voting being cast. So basically, what's happening in Puerto Rico is also happening here on the mainland. That's very, very interesting. And she supports the push of nationwide paper ballots so voters can trust the integrity of U.S. elections. So that's very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that's very interesting, and CanCon put this out, U.S. Senator David Perdue's RICO testimony was unsealed. Senator Perdue testified in the Trump RICO special grand jury that Governor Brian Kemp shut down a compelling investigation into the 2020 ballot harvesting. Then Director of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Vic Reynolds, told Senator Perdue, I'm a team player. If the governor doesn't want to investigate, we're not going to investigate. You said that although Mr. Reynolds had received evidence that he felt was compelling enough to open an investigation, that he was not going to investigate because the governor had told him not to. That's one thing he said. Yeah. Senator Perdue, 1 month before the special grand jury testimony, Vic Reynolds was appointed a Superior Court judge by Governor Brian Kemp. And Reynolds wasn't the only person who ignored the election fraud evidence or maladministration and got appointed to a Superior Court judgeship. He wasn't even the second one. So basically, all these people went along with this and they bribed them with judgeship. And they said, listen, if you don't investigate, I'll make you a judge. So that's what the secret grand jury testimony shows. That they said, listen, if you don't do anything and you don't show the American people how we cheated in the election, we will make you judges. I mean, think about this for a second. Think about what they just did here. And now it's just come out in the open. So wait a minute. Is Trump's case building and building and building? Absolutely. The Trump War Room put this out and said, POTUS on the FBI search in Fulton County, Georgia. I'm not doing anything, but the FBI went in because it's been under review for years. Why would anyone be upset that they went in and got the ballots? They got a court order signed by a respective but liberal judge. Now think about what Trump said there. It's a liberal judge. It wasn't a conservative judge. And Trump says he has nothing to do with this. Optics are very, very important. And Trump is letting everyone know that they're going to get to the bottom of what happened with the 2016 election, what happened with the 2020 election, what happened with the 2024 election, and yes, the midterms in between. Stormers Arrive put this out and said, President Trump just gave a huge shout out to DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, and Bondi for doing a great job. DJT said that Tulsi went down to Georgia at Pam Bondi's direction and implied potential foreign interference in the 2020 election. He was joking that Democrats screamed about Russian interfering in the 2016 election, but now all of a sudden they want nothing to do with that. A solid point, Trump added. So now they're saying Russia had nothing to do with it because if I say Russia, it's perfectly fine. But you could add China and about 5 other countries to it. Is Trump implying they believe there was foreign interference, or is he just trolling the deep state? Time will tell. I do believe there were multiple countries involved with this because think about it. The House GOP just came out with a report showing that the EU was involved in manipulating elections out in Europe, even here in the United States with social media. So you don't think there were foreign countries involved in this? Absolutely. Then Trump said this, and this is very, very interesting. Eric Doherty put this out. Trump just said they will find out the true winner of Georgia in the 2020 election after the FBI raid. If China or any other country got involved, that would bring Tulsi Gabbard into it. They will find the true winner. And this brings us back to the point. If we come to find out that the elections were rigged, which we know they are, and they overthrew the United States government, they had an insurrection against a sitting president, which was Trump. It wasn't the people of this country. It was the deep state players. Does he get his term back? That is going to be very, very interesting. And you could see that those in Fulton County, they are now panicking. They're worried about the chain of custody. They're worried about everything. You know why? Because they cheated in the election and now it's being all exposed. Patriots Are Control put this out and says, Fulton County Chairman Rob Pitts says he received 2 calls from a source, one before the raid and one after, telling him that they can't relax and that arrests are coming. There is panic in Georgia like we've never seen before. Absolutely unbelievable. And this is why, at this point in time, since they cheated in the election, and this evidence is going to be coming out, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the rhinos. This is why we need to get rid of the filibuster. This is why we have to pass the SAVE Act right now. And I do believe Trump is basically going down this path, having all of this done to put a lot of pressure on these rhinos. Amuse put this out and said, Thune could force debate and pass the SAVE Act in one legislative day. Democrats can only delay by speaking, and most are over 70, limiting the delay. The truth is Thune does not have the 51 votes on the floor, and it would require giving cover to Republicans like John Cornyn, who are opposed to the bill by not allowing a debate. So basically what he has to do is he has to nuke the filibuster. Because again, he's out there saying, oh, this is a great time for the SAVE Act. Let's pass it in the Senate. Well, once again, to make it a lot easier and to pass a lot more things, get rid of the filibuster. But let's see how this all works out. And again, if they don't nuke the filibuster and they take a vote on it, look at the Republicans that vote no on the SAVE Act. These people will need to be primaried. And I do believe Trump is going to come at them with everything that he has. And think about it. They've been telling us for a very long time that presenting a voter ID is racist. The black people won't be able to do this. Well, Lance Gooden pretty much shut this down. In 2012, Barack Obama was asked to show his ID to vote. He gladly complied. And once again, when you look at the polls, 75% of the black people want voter ID. This should tell you everything you need to know. The only reason the D's do not want voter ID is because they know their illegals won't be able to vote, and they're going to lose big time. That's why Schumer keeps comparing it to Jim Crow. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, Trump did say something else that's very, very interesting. He was speaking, and Trump says he doesn't sleep on planes. He says, I like looking out the window, watching for missiles and enemies, actually. Now, it was said as a joke, but going back in time, we know there was a Q post referring to a missile launch at Trump. So is Trump trying to let us know that this might occur once again, that they might attempt to take him out one way or another? Maybe, maybe not. Now, do I think this is going to happen? No. But I think it's very interesting that he's bringing this up right now, that he's very worried about this. Because you have to remember, the deep state players, they know that once Trump and the Patriots that he endorses wins the election during the midterms, what do they have left? The only thing they can do is get rid of him. And how would they get rid of him? Well, they already tried to assassinate him. Will they try to fire a missile at his plane? Maybe, maybe not. Will they try to fire a missile at his residence? Maybe, maybe not. Will they be intercepted? Absolutely. But will they go to the extreme to try to stop him? Because they know what comes next. They're arrested. Or will they try to do this before the midterms? I do believe we're preparing for a false flag. And I remember Dan Scavino letting everyone know, yes, be prepared, be ready for a false flag. Could there be multiple false flags? Absolutely. I mean, hopefully nothing happens. Hopefully the deep state says, okay, listen, we're not going to win the midterm, so we're not going to do anything. So let's just let them win, and I guess they'll just arrest us. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll fight back with everything that they have. But I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they have all these countermeasures in place. And in the end, they're not going to win. They're not going to win with the chaos. They're not going to win if they do a cyber attack or a virus or something like that, or some type of event. If they try to take out Trump again, they're not going to win. We have technology right now that can protect the American people. And that's what Trump has been all about, protecting the American people every step of the way. And I do believe once people find out who actually and truly won the elections in 2020, and it shows that the elections were rigged, actually the people, they're pretty much on board with this right now. And once it's presented to the American people, it's game over for the deep state players. They're going to be running for their lives in the end. And yes, we're going to see arrests. Yes, we're going to see accountability. That is going to be happening very soon. But we do have to go from this point to the midterms. Yes, the deep state players are going to do whatever they possibly can to try to stop Trump every step of the way. But again, it's all going to fail, just like it's failed every single other time. And in the end, Trump is going to win. The people are going to win. Remember, this is all about taking back the country. That's what this is about. This is not just a 4-year election. This is about taking the power back from the deep state players, the power that they stole from us. And we're going to basically dismantle their entire system, and all that power that they have taken from us, it's going to return to the people. Why? Because the Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.